Hello, my dear friends and family. Operator Starsky here. I hope that you have your hot coffee. I really do. And I really hope that our friends there in Berlin can enjoy one as well, because as we already mentioned yesterday during the stream, approximately 45,000 households in one of the areas of Berlin lost electricity due to a terrorist attack on the power grid in Germany. We will be talking about this in detail because I started receiving more information. I'm following several communities of Ukrainians in Germany, and actually, if you guys are from that area, somewhere there in the chat, please let me know as well, right? Because it's very important. So let's talk about this one. We know at this point who is responsible, or at least claim responsibility for this attack. It's so-called Vulkan-Gruppe. There was another cyber story, right, related to another Russia-related Vulkan-Gruppe, but it's a different story, right? In 2023, a Russian cyber contractor was exposed, the so-called NTC Vulkan, but it's a different story, or is it? I don't want to speculate. Thank you so much for joining us today, my dear friends. As always, it's a pleasure to see you. Ali, hello. Katya, hello. Newman, I think he's sleeping, but anyways, Trini, hello, hello. So let's talk about this in detail. Let's see some footage as well. What we have here on our side on the Ukrainian media outlets. A terrorist attack was committed against the cable network, against the power grid in Berlin. They were set on fire, and as a result, 2,000 commercial and approximately 45,000 civilian households lost electricity. It wasn't me. Hello, hello, my friend. If you have somebody, some friends or some relatives there in the area, please let me know if there are any updates, right? Are we committing the international war crime of clickbaiting? I literally have no idea, but it's not a clickbait. It's actually a true story, because at this point, 4 days straight, the citizens of Berlin, of one of the regions of Berlin, are there without electricity. And if you take a look at what is happening there, it pretty much reminds of what Ukrainians are facing after the Russian attacks on Ukrainian power grid since 2022. That is why it's not that funny, and it's a serious stuff. What do we know about the Vulkan Group? We know that it's a very, very covered label / network, not a known organization, not a violent organization. Authorities describe it as very, very hard to penetrate because they don't have public leadership. They have unknown member size and also a very, very unclear internal structure. The ideological framing, so Germans reporting and quoted security assessments, place it in the violent / anarchist / far left / extremist field, with an environmental and capitalist reasoning behind their attacks. My God, and people from Germany already texting me, but that's, yeah, I know this guy. Hello, my friend. So that is what we know about them at this very point. Of course, speculating are they related to Russians or not, it's very hard to prove at this very point. The German law enforcement is investigating this at this moment. Since 2011, there have been at least 11 claimed or attributed attack complexes in Berlin and Brandenburg under this Vulkan Gruppe label. So 2011, before the Russian hybrid warfare on Ukraine, that kind of puts them slightly away from all the conspiracies of their relation to Russia. But on the other hand, can they be related to Russia? 2020, I talked to several people from different foreign intelligence agencies, and they all say, like, dude, all far left, all far right guys that you can see in Europe currently, they're all funded by Kremlin. Don't have illusions, all right? And at the same time, who is known for using proxies, using terrorist groups, assassinations, and attacks on energy infrastructure? Let me think. I think cunning Swiss. Probably cunning Swiss. Those Swiss are so cunning. Jokes aside, we all know who do that. All right, but let's not let's not slip into conspiracies. Newman, hello, my friends. Good to see you here. What is the situation at this very moment? Let's check it out. We have some footage, of course, coming from Berlin. We can see that they've lost electricity, and this is something very, very typical, for example, for Ukraine, winter 2022-2023. All right, people charging their gadgets in the what in Ukraine we call invincibility points. Right. We will talk about this. Quite a few Germans think that Russians attacked because for the fourth day straight there is no electricity in that area, and German citizens are scared, and a lot of people massively leave their households during this blackout. So another update. That one is, by the way, a generator from Karlsruhe, again from Germany. Also, we know that in several Ukrainian outlets there are publications, there are updates that actually Ukrainians stepped in, and they even organized their own Ukrainian invincibility point there in Berlin for everybody to see. I would really like to have more information on this one because not much footage is unfortunately available, but I will find it for you. So what is invincibility points? I already made a video on that one back in Bucha, right? About the invincibility point that we had in Ukraine, for example, right? This is what it looks like. It's just literally a tent, a place where people can charge their stuff. That's my slim mug over there. But that's what it looks like, right? That's where you can go with your family, have hot tea, hot coffee, charge your gadgets. There is usually a generator installed and usually some kind of communication device with free Wi-Fi and television, so you have access to the latest updates and also the connection, right? Connect with your relatives, your friends, to inform them that you are fine and that everything is okay. So Ukrainians apparently also stepped in. Let's check out some more footage. This is how we keep warm and illuminate our apartment during the blackout in Berlin. I'm not sure if that's a Ukrainian family or not. Also, we can see some more footage, the illumination on the street that's organized apparently by the local rescue services. I've seen that in my area as well several times. Yeah, and frankly speaking, the situation is kind of snafu. Why it's snafu is because when you lose electricity in Germany, you also lose heating, because even if you have your very own boiler in the basement, most probably it won't work without electricity. Jellyfish, guten Morgen. I hope that everything's fine with you. That is why it's kind of serious. That is why you don't necessarily need to strike some heating power station in Germany. It's enough to cut the electricity, and civilians will be suffering because of that. The Vulcan group, I consider them absolute motherfuckers, and I think that everybody does, because it's not about political position, protest, or whatever. That's literally what the motherfuckers do. They attack civilians, covering all that with whatever bullshit they may come up with. So what else do we have? Loss of heating is not the biggest problem. Freezing water in all metal pipes is the problem. Yes, absolutely, Zulkan, because the water that is freezing in the pipes, it expands. And currently we know that the temperature in Germany, in many areas, in many not states, but województwo, like Polish say, we know that the temperature is below zero, and that is why those pipes may absolutely easily break. So that is another very, very concerning thing. Let's check also what we have. Let me just wear my headphones.
Ich gedacht, einen richtigen Schreck bekommen. Ich habe wirklich gedacht, jetzt haben die Russen
this lady says
keine Ahnung.
that she actually thought that she was attacked by Russians.
Irgendwie attackiert.
Here we can see one of the... Oh my god.
Richtigen Schreck bekommen. Ich habe wirklich gedacht, Ahnung, irgendwie attackiert.
Here we can see the temporary shelter for the civilians that is organized in one of the gyms. There's a bunch of beds. You can see people sleeping there. And again, place where people can charge their gadgets, their phones. Something that we've seen in many cases, right, in Ukraine, winter 2023, 2022, 2023, winter 23-24, winter 24-25. All that takes place, of course, in winter, because Russians are known terrorists, right? They act like terrorists every single winter, every single time. And here we can see also a similar picture. The medics, the German medics, the rescue service is over there, all right, providing people with different warm beverage. You can also see that the parents are also bringing their kids there. She says that this hit this lady very, very hard. She feels like actually crying because she understands what the Ukrainians are going through, and you feel this on your very own skin. So what is known about the repair works that are taking place at this time? It is known that the repairs and the snowfall is, of course, freaking insane. It is known that the repair works are ongoing, but unfortunately, due to the scale of the damage, the German authorities expect this repair to be finished after approximately 8th of January, so most probably around within 2 days. I hope that it will take less time, of course, and Ukrainians are known for doing that under fire within like 5 hours, and I really hope that German authorities already contacted Ukrainians and asked them what to do. Again, we know that Ukrainians organized that invincibility point there because we know what it is. We suffered it already several years. Rangens Rula, good Good day, generally. Guten Tag. The attack on Berlin power grid left 45,000 German citizens without electricity several days ago, and the repairs are still ongoing. So, can Ukraine help with Ukrainian experience 100% in terms of organizing the invincibility points, in terms of helping to actually repair the damaged power grids? I believe that if German authorities have such need or rights, they will definitely or already have contacted Ukrainian authorities, and they will or maybe already receiving all sorts of necessary consultations and maybe even personnel that is acquainted with repairs in such conditions. So I don't have information in this regard, unfortunately, and I believe that if Germany really needs or requires such assistance, of course they will contact Ukrainians. German law enforcement, German security services, rescue services, medics, they all have their standard operational procedures on what to do in such cases, which were developed, I believe, like in 1950s, so everything is known, all right? Everybody knows what to do. So that is currently the situation. What I can say about the possible Russian links, again, according to what I have at this point, so Berlin Generalstaatsanwaltschaft took over, and Tagesspiegel reports an LKA investigative group, and that LKA considered the claim letter that was written authentic, while the Federal Domestic Intelligence Service is currently a bit more cautious at this point, and they keep investigating. What speculations do we have right now, right? Because we got to talk about them as well. Tagesspiegel summarizes the main point, right, behind the rumors of possible Russian involvement, the language and the alter clues in the letter of this Vulcan group that takes responsibility. Social media commenters and at least one AI and linguistic assessment prove that parts of the text don't read like native local German. There are odd errors and spelling that some interpret as consistent with machine translation or non-native writing. Again, it's up to you to decide, and also it's up to the German law enforcement and German investigators to find clues whether there was any connection with the Russian terrorists that are known, right, in terms of their position towards Germany. But if you ask me, there is a huge possibility that they were also involved, because Russia is known in waging non-conventional so-called hybrid warfare, and Russia is, of course, known in frames of attacking the civilian infrastructure, critical infrastructure, power grid. They all know how to do that, and the very fact that this Vulcan group is positioning itself as far left gives, for example, pro-Russian facts like AfD a lot of political benefits, all right? They will say, yes, look at what those far left guys are doing. They are all a danger to the German society, which of course they are, but the question is where the legs are growing from, right? That's just my opinion. Guys, again, if you can, please let me know if you have any links, any connections there in Berlin at this point. What is the situation? Because your information will be very, very important for us. Greetings, Starsky. We have become a bit rusty and did not really think something could happen to us, unfortunately. I don't blame you because the same happened to Ukraine in February 2022. Okay, we were just a bit more prepared, but all the same, at the same time, friends, we already know and understand how to act in such situations when people lose electricity and heating in winter. Ukrainians, again, we are facing that every single year, even today as we speak, and we know exactly what to do. What to do in case of this? First of all, of course, if you have a prepared emergency backpack is not only required in terms of air alert or of anything else, because in your emergency backpack you always store some kind of power banks. All right, power banks are absolutely crucial and necessary. Power banks will help you charge your gadgets. Your gadgets might not be very useful in case the mobile networks also down, all right, but still you gotta have them charged, because you want to be able to keep your connection with the updates and with your relatives. That's something very, very crucial. 14,000 households are back on grid. Yes, that is very, very inspiring. 30 more to go. I really hope that this electricity will be restored very, very soon. Yeah, but returning to our topic, how to prepare to this? As easy as buying power banks, as easy as buying power stations, all right? For example, what I had when I was in Ukraine, what sort of equipment I used. I had a generator. It was an inverter generator, benzene. I had a power station, like the big one, generator plugged into it, all right? And then I had everything else plugged into the power station. So when I am not using the generator, I feed all of my gadgets, all of my computers and things like that using the power station, and then I can just turn on the generator and charge it. And I can use it while I'm charging it. So that's one of the things. There's a lot of Germans living, for example, in like houses, right, not in apartments, and that gives them benefit because they can literally place the generator outside somewhere in the yard, drop a cable and use that. If you don't have such opportunity, please find yourself a bunch of batteries, a bunch of power banks. Okay, the bigger the capacity, the better, of course, and the bigger the number of exits of USB connectors, the better, because using only one, you can literally charge several gadgets. If you have kids, if you have a family, that's very important to have. Warm clothes, okay, I don't even have to mention this one. I've seen Germans literally like walking outside in winter wearing only t-shirts, alright? So, I'm just kidding, of course, but warm clothes, not only warm clothes, but one of the most important things is warm, we call it tactical underwear, or thermal underwear. That is also something very, very necessary to have. I don't know how many Germans have that in their households, but from my army experience, you gotta have at least 2 pairs, because when you're sweaty, you gotta have opportunity to put it to dry for a while and switch. Okay, that's what we have in the army and army-related families in Ukraine. I am German, but I was never in capital Berlin because of East Berlin Soviet shitty buildings under Russian influence. but I was 5-6 times in Paris. I've never been to Paris before, but I've been to Berlin, and I know what you're talking about. But even those shitty buildings cannot compare to real Russian spirit, all right? Because when you look at Omsk, whatever, that is just insane. Without Ukraine, basically, is Russia nothing more than a large petrol station? Yeah, they are. That is what we call terror Russia in Ukraine, and in the neighboring country, we basically call it a big gas station. They could get a USB charging hub to plug into the ACL, then they're nice to have and gives more ports. Yeah. For example, I have one right there. Can I? Yeah, like a USB charger like this, a USB hub like this one, all right? With several ports. I have one with like 10 ports, and they're always very handy to have. And of course, you gotta have at least several power banks at all time, because they should be also switched, all right, in turns. You charge one, you use a different one. You charge it when you have such an opportunity. Regarding the invincibility points, that is another thing. Not only you need to stand there and wait until the rescue service or medics or law enforcement, until they deploy a tent, all right, and you can just go there with your family, because in Ukraine, besides the so-called states, all right, besides the official invincibility points, we have invincibility points based on gas stations, on libraries, on cafeterias, right? Wherever there is some sort of establishment or cafeteria or gas station, by the way, because they always have fuel and they always have electricity. So in such cases, you can also invite people, give them some kind of space, all right, dedicate some kind of space for people to sit down, have coffee, and charge their stuff. Gas stations are very good in this regard, because they always have electricity, right? They always have electricity, they have some basic food, and people can charge their stuff there. In Ukraine, we have charging stations, all right, based on the gas stations. So if you go to Ukraine and you visit, for example, WOG gas station, OKO, whatever, it's currently a trend, all right, since 2022. In the area that is dedicated, for example, to like canteen, all right, the tables where people sit at the gas station having a snack, you can often find charging stations. There's a bunch of power banks that you can take, you can charge your stuff, you can insert the power bank back, and it's charging. Okay. Our gas stations mainly sell hot dogs these days. I don't know. The closest gas station to me sells kick-ass cheesecakes and salty croissants, all right? Salty croissants, but cheesecakes are good. Are we certain it was an attack? So the Vulkan Gruppe already took responsibility, and several German agencies that investigate this, one of them considers this letter that was published a true thing, while the counter-espionage, while the German intelligence is still not sure, and they are still investigating. All right, so it was an attack for real. The cables were burned. It wasn't an accident. It's 100% confirmed that it was an attack, and Berlin authorities already called this a terrorist attack, which is, again, 100% true, because this attack was directed at people's welfare and health, all right? People health and, generally speaking, life is in danger, because the temperature in Germany is around zero and below zero these days. Vulcan Group is in Berlin is 100% a Kremlin-aligned and most certainly infiltrated-backed operation. LE hasn't been able to classify it for months, and their MO and stylometry are Russian to the core. I can see a lot of indications that they can be Russian, considering especially the way their structure is built. Because if we take a look, for example, at how the Russian terrorists operated since 2014 in Ukraine, it was basically like that. They also used the experience, okay, of other terrorist organizations that had not vertical but horizontal structure without any definite leadership. That's one of the indications. Ukrainian intelligence actually had experience with them, and generally speaking, if I was a German operator, right, of some sort of intelligence agency, I would definitely also contact Ukrainians. Maybe Ukrainian intelligence has some clues, or maybe they have some kind of experience that they can share. Okay, because again, holy shit, 2026, it turns out that Ukraine has a lot of very painful but very, very crucial and important experience that we can share with the world in terms of fighting terrorism, in terms of protecting people during the strikes on the power grids, on the heating grids and shit like that. Nothing like, nothing like we anticipated, right? So I thought my whole life that Ukraine will become famous for borscht and vareniki, but it turns out that there's much more we can share with the world to keep our European community safe and secure. So I really, really hope that the German authorities are communicating with Ukrainians, because at this very point, Ukraine is the country that can provide them with the most help and support we can, all right? So that is another thing. Every time I type, it gets blocked. My friend, first of all, orcs definitely can't fly, I can tell. Secondly, it happens to me all the time, even on my very own channel. I was surprised a small under $10 solar panel charged a 10,000, I think, milliampere per hour battery pack in one day. Yeah, so the solar panels are very, very good, all right, definitely, 100%. But the problem is you need sun for it to be effective. For example, if we take a look at what's going on outside with all those clouds, the capacity of this solar panel will be around 10%, right, of its potential. Maybe in best case. I know because I tried, because again, we experimented with different things in 2022, 2023 in winter. And we were looking for all sorts of, alternative ways of charging our stuff. And I experimented with different solar panels. They all you can see between 6 and 10% capacity if you have clouds. It sucks very, very much. Therefore, the only thing we can rely on is other source of fuel, wind, all right, the windmills. That I'm sorry, I will mention it, but Trump is protesting very, very much against, all right? So windmills, electric windmills, that by the way, Germany has a lot, and also usual fuel, benzene, diesel, and generators that use that fuel. Store up solar when it's sunny, yeah. In my part of Germany, we have sunny weather, I would say often, all right? In Ukraine, for example, if it's winter, it's dark half a year. Here, it's a bit different, but again, you don't really know. You don't really know. You gotta follow the weather updates and stuff. So one of the most reliable things to keep yourself charged is literally have a generator. I bought my generator for, my god, what was the price back in 2022? In dollars, that would be something like 500, 600, something like that. One of our dear friends there in the chat actually helped me to obtain a Starlink and also a generator, and also another Starlink for my guys in the brigade. And then I brought my Starlink to the guys, I brought my second Starlink to the guys, and during a fucking storm it was destroyed because the thunder hit, the lightning hit somewhere not far and it died. Generators are absolutely crucial. 2-3 kilowatts are completely enough to literally charge your gadgets, run your PC, all right? If you have a stationary PC, laptops, that's, yeah, by default, but if you have a stationary PC, that stuff may help you. There's a saying, don't put all the eggs in the same basket. We need to keep all energy sources available, all oil, gas, and electric. Yes, I completely support this one. We need our energy sources to be diverse and variable, because if we lose one, we will not suffer as much, all right, as losing everything. Another thing, for example, this was a strike on the power grid. What else? What kind of strikes we can anticipate in the future? We can anticipate, of course, strikes on the oil storage facilities, fuel storage facilities, and gas storage facilities in Germany, 100%. Because we can see that this current phase of the hybrid warfare is targeting those. So in Ukraine, we had quite a few cars, for example, that were equipped with not only, like if it's a benzene car, all right, if it's a petrol car, not diesel car. So you can equip this car with an equipment that allows you to also use LNG, all right? And that's why, for example, I felt lucky because majority of Ukrainians, literally majority of Ukrainians in 2022 used diesel cars. And when the Russians started bombarding our fuel infrastructure, our gas and fuel storage facilities, at some point, Ukrainians that use diesel, first of all, they found themselves absolutely unable to drive their cars because we had a huge shortage of that. And secondly, because diesel became the most expensive fuel in Ukraine, for obvious reasons, because Ukrainian military, all Ukrainian military are using diesel. I had a car that was equipped with gas equipment, right? So I could use both gasoline and the LNG. That's what I'm driving right now. So if you have such an opportunity, all right, think about this one. Why it's important is because out of 3 available fuel types, my car could consume 2, all right? So that was important. Again, benzene generators or diesel generators is up to you. I literally used benzene generator because my car is running on benzene, so I could always use the same type of fuel, to fuel both. I think my account been flagged. Not yet, my friend. Not yet. We will see the American policy on the freedom of speech, all right? Not American, Trump's policy on freedom of speech in the upcoming future. That's when we will get flagged 100%. Yesterday, Germany's state anti-Semitism commissioner's house attacked. Holy shit. That's fucking insane. It's sad to see every day my fellow countrymen, as well as other Europeans in general, still underestimate the current situation in Ukraine and what goes with it, and are still not alert. Yes, it's very, very sad. Ukrainians are talking about this since 2022, actually. But I don't blame people. We never think about things that are dangerous, scary, and inconvenient, right? It's natural. All the people prefer to live in their safe bubble, surround them with their convenient, familiar things because it's our nature, right? I just woke up, Germany under attack. Berlin was under attack for already several days, right? The Berlin power grid was attacked, and the extremist group Vulkangruppe took responsibility for that. 45,000, at this point, approximately 30,000 already, because the electricity was restored. 30,000 households in one of the areas of Berlin are completely without electricity for several days already. The invincibility points were established both by the local authorities and municipal services, and also Ukrainians stepped in and literally established one. I believe they invite people, to have borscht, coffee, tea, and charge their stuff. That's what I'm looking for, by the way. Let me check out several groups if I can find any additional information, because I really, really want to see some footage. That's Ukraine Online. I really, really want to see some footage of that. Not much updates, unfortunately. According to Bloomberg, Germany sees a preparation to wider conflict in Russia's hybrid attacks. Not like I enjoy citing Bloomberg, but quoting Bloomberg, right? But that's obviously one of the signs. Yeah, I will be checking out the updates frequently because I want to actually see some footage from that area. I would actually go there myself. Seriously. I need to change my battery, and I will definitely go there myself. Mods can't stop me. I have too many other accounts. I have like 10, by the way. I'm not kidding. But they're all official. Ukraine should be experts at restoring power grid at this point. They really are, and of course our power grid is a bit different from the European power grid. Again, post-Soviet and Soviet high-tech, all right, that is still widely used in the post-Soviet space, but Ukraine is slowly transforming, all right, and also Ukrainian power grid, why it's so hard to destroy at this very point. First of all, because Ukraine is highly saturated with all sorts of electricity generators, all right, that you can see literally attached to whatever establishment, whatever gas station, whatever house. We have basically a generator in every house in Ukraine, all right? But that is a sort of a backup. And also Ukrainians will definitely be able to help restore those power grids fast, okay? Because our dudes do that under fire, under missile strikes. Guys, you will be impressed to learn how many Ukrainian engineers actually lost their lives due to that, because when Russians attack a power grid, they attack it in waves. Okay, so they have a drone circling somewhere, observing the area. They coordinate a strike at a power grid, and then when Ukrainian engineers arrive, in order to restore it, they fucking strike again. So unfortunately, quite a few Ukrainian engineers, as well as Ukrainian rescuers, lost their lives due to that. Basically, yeah, Russians being Russians, 100%. Generators are expensive. I agree on that. How much would we pay for the well-being of our family and being able to keep our kids warm? That's like a decision people should make. What voltage and plug do you use in Ukraine? 220 volts. The plug is basically like European, all right? The piglet outlet, all right? Footage of what? Footage of Ukrainian invincibility pointer. Because if Ukrainians are there, they definitely did something like that. Ukrainians are known for self-organizing very much. A lot of Ukrainian outlets actually say that Ukrainians in Berlin actually organized one of the invincibility points. If it's true, I would really like to see that. Small generators that can keep a Bluetti or Jacker or something charged aren't insane price. Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. I had either 2.3 or 3 kilowatt inverter benzene generator. I would always charge my Bluetti. And by the way, my Bluetti was enough to charge, for example, Starlink, my gadgets, run my computer, help me make videos and updates for you, my friends. And the very generator would later help to charge the Bluetti itself. And also how did I plug it in the electric socket? Oh my god. So let me just remind myself, because I had the generator plugged in the Bluetti, in the power station, and also I had the power station itself plugged into the power grid. So if we have electricity, it charges through the power grid and it bypasses the electricity bypasses the power station when it's charged, and my gadgets are running directly, all right, from the power grid. And then when the shed collapses, when we have a blackout, then the station itself turns on and is running. And then if you need to charge it, you just start the generator. So one important thing to remember, again, to those who didn't work with generators much, you always need to have, besides the fuel, all right, you also always need to have a storage of oil, because that shed eats oil like crazy, and you gotta have specific oil designed for this generator. So you gotta check out the manual, find what sort of specific oil you're using. That's basically the viscosity, all right? The viscosity of the oil, what matters. And you gotta check out the manual how to properly change the oil in it, all right? Because it's important. This stuff will eat oil a lot. I can tell you that. Don't plug the generator to the power grid, you need a switch. Yes, that's important to remember. But for example, my Bluetti, it had automatic switch. So I plug the generator into it, then I plug the Bluetti itself into the power grid, but not to feed the power grid, to receive from the power grid, all right? And then I plug everything else into the Bluetti, into the power station. So again, when we have electricity, the electricity bypasses the power station through it, all right, and feeds all of my stuff. Then when the electricity is shut down, the charge station turns on and feeds everything. So basically, when we have a blackout, computers don't even stop working because of that. They keep running. Okay, and then when I need to charge the power station itself, I just turn on the generator. It takes some time to charge it, maybe an hour or so. And this power station actually allows you to, you can charge your iPhone 100 times, if not 1,000 times from the power station. If your instinct of self-preservation is very, very low, all right, you can even use it to feed your electric stove and make yourself like a bunch of scrambled eggs, but those will be like the last things you will make, all right, because it will drain the power station very, very fast. Don't forget to tell your boss that hiring Christian freelance is like hiring a famous criminal. I will tell my boss, alright, I will tell my lady that I live with that hiring Christy is probably very, very bad. I'm not sure if she knows who Christy is. She's Persian. But I will tell her, I will pass your message to my lady, alright? Because like she's my boss at this point. Tomorrow I will ask our Ukrainian trainer Katya run in my sport group for seniors about her experience on the topic home power generator. Yeah, she's from Mariupol. She might know about that. Definitely. But again, if you have any additional questions, you can also leave them either in the chat or preferably in the comments, because they remain there, all right? There's a million commentaries in the chat, but commentaries I will be reading, and in case you have some specific questions or something I don't know, also leave your comments there. I will respond to them, all right? If you have some time, look up Freeland and what she did during the Cold War, underground fighting Moscow in Ukraine. Yeah, I will, definitely. If you're putting solar panels in windows, any treating or glazing will affect them too. Yes, that is another point. Generally, even if you put solar panels on the rooftops, right, there's always snow and stuff like that, the icing, so that affects them as well. But using solar panels in winter, generally, my friends, doesn't make much sense. The electric windmills, the wind generators work 100%, especially in winter. Yes, they really do. And the usual fuel like gasoline, like diesel for the generators also works. So you can use those. What you can use for providing yourself with the heat? Okay. Whatever heavy, okay, I will not be explaining that because the fire safety and shit like that. Yeah, but Ukrainians use also different devices, to keep warm. Also, if you have a big house, all right, you can temporarily move into a tiny room altogether. Okay, because first of all, the passive heating, your bodies radiate heat as well, and the room will be much warmer in case you lost heating and electricity, and you will passively warm up the room itself. And also you can use, for example, candle. But guys, again, fire safety. Fire safety is very, very important to keep in mind, all right? That is another thing. The EU buys less fossils from Russia than the US, by the way. Since Orban is cut off, the numbers triple down. The EU buys nearly nothing right now. Yeah, that's true. I can confirm. At this very point, just several countries like Belgium and France, as far as I remember, they only buy just a smidgen of LNG from the Terrorist Federation. But that's Europe, because for example, India that sells oil to Australia, they actually sell the Russian oil. The Russians are dumping their oil to India with like insane discounts, all right, because they realize that nobody else will freaking buy it. So they sell enormous amounts of their oil to India with like very, very, very cheaply. And then Indians sell it just a smidgen more expensively to Australia. And that's a known fact. This cold, mate, was -5 here last night and we just had snow, but thankfully not 0.5. Everything would stop working. Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. Maybe it's age. Like, I had majority of my deployments in winter. When you go to Luhansk and the temperature there is like freaking -35 Celsius easily, you know. That shit sucks. But I was like, I suffered. I really did. I suffered. But we could still do something, right? But again, it was 2016, 2017. I was 10 years younger. Now it's literally like -1 in my area. I'm freaking freezing like crazy. That is why we gotta have coffee. It wasn't me. I remember about the thermal cup. I have it as like right there on the window with coffee that turned into a cheese inside, all right, because I forgot to wash it. So I have it. Don't worry. I'll be fine. Here's +1. Everything that is around 10 Celsius and lower in aviation is considered freezing temperature. So everything between Dennis DeVito, my good buddy, Captain Dennis, he can confirm that when you are in this range between +10 and like -20, you turn on the de-icing equipment or anti-icing equipment on your aircraft. Depends on if you can multiply the candles heat. Hobo channels have some cool heating devices. I agree on that, but I just don't want to give people like bad advice and freaking burn half of Germany. All right, I will shoot. I will self-terminate if it happens. So I don't want to do that. But we actually we used quite a few devices. So first of all, we have stoves that are tiny, that are like the size of a cup, and the stove works on wooden chips. Okay, it doesn't require a lot of fuel. Literally a bunch of fuel chips that you just stick inside. It has a ventilation on the bottom. You just like extend it, right? You have ventilation on the bottom, sucks the air from the bottom and like literally projects it upwards. So using just a bunch of wooden chips, you can literally prepare yourself whatever, porridge, eggs and stuff like that. That all can be easily obtained from the tourist stores. And also we used several other devices to keep the apartments warm. But I cannot say that they were very, very safe. Okay, that is the biggest concern that I have. So, plus generally, yeah, multiplying heat is not a thing. What is the thing is turning the heat from a candle into transmitting, relocating the heat from a candle into some bigger, heavier object that has big mass, accumulates this heat, and then radiates it, all right? That's like the main principle. As for the device's powering, once upon a time I had a fire camp generator with minus 15 degrees. It had some 200 watt output, not bad. I typed like an idiot. Don't do drugs, guys, especially coffee, 100%. Do coffee, don't do anything besides it, right? I think they're called rocket furnace. Maybe. Why it's so cool is because when you go, for example, somewhere outside and you want to prepare hot food, all right? I cooked literally porridge for how much? Like 4 people, all right? On this very stuff. It's a tiny furnace. But you don't need like 5 kilograms of firewood for that. You literally collect the pine cones, you collect tiny branches and wood chips, and it works. So that is something that can actually be very useful in case you have lost the power and gas maybe as well, because the gas pumps won't work much either. Rocket stoves, most probably. Warming a stone to put at the foot of your bed. Let me tell you the story. When I was tree planting and we were living in tents, and a couple of girls put rocks in the fire, and then, oh my god, I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah, but the main principle is like that. You need something, because when you burn a candle, the heat just dissipates, all right? But if you have some bigger object that cannot be burnt, all right, but it can accumulate the heat and then radiate it with like a bigger area, all right, that can be handy. But like, guys, I don't want to you know give a lot of bad advices and make a disaster. Comments on German news outlets is filled to the brink with pro-AfD freaks, not one mention of Russia. Oh yeah. Strange, isn't it? Note that throwing random rocks in the fire can result in exploding stone shrapnel. Yeah, that can be true, again, because quick difference in temperatures, if you expose something as solid as a rock to very different temperatures in a short period of time, the rock shrinks and expands very fast. So yes, the explosion might be the case. What is neat is determining the temperature by walking on snow. Below minus 10, walking on snow makes a crunch sound. Yes. But again, depending on the condition of the snow, because there might be ice beneath it, there might be ice on top of it, so of course it depends. Also, be careful of carbon monoxide if you're burning things to stay warm. Yes, that is very important to remember, and also very important to remember. Something that unfortunately a lot of Ukrainians encountered and realized on their own experience, right, on their own skin, is that you never ever put a generator inside your home. Never, all right? You can put it outside, you can put it on a balcony. I did. And by the way, the generator that I had, it was kinda more or less quiet, right? It was German, by the way. And it was kinda quiet. So when I used the generator, I would just put it outside, either on the balcony or in the yard. And it would not disturb the people much. Never eat yellow snow. Yes, exactly. That's what Russian mothers teach their children all the time. More having the heat stored minus waste, so you use the heat times stored minus waste plus the initial energy of the candle. The candles are a poor analogy, but I candle correct as low CO1 outputs. Hard to answer this, my friend. I was sick not only when we learned, when we studied math at school, but also when we studied physics. So I have only very, very primitive knowledge, and I can tell you what kind of works and what not. Those equations literally make my head hurt so bad. But it's literally my problem, right? I remember one time I was passing the selection program to one very interesting agency, all right? And I had this 2-hour-long conversation with the psychologist. And after 2 hours, she's like, how much is 12 by 14? I realized I cannot freaking multiply 12 by 14. Holy shit. There's too many coincidences happening with power blackouts recently, but of course I also understand the reason is still being investigated. Yeah, Anita, 100% I agree with you. Let's not jump into conclusions. Because let investigators do their job. They're Germans, they know what they do, right? News from Berlin at this hour is still the same. From what I can tell, surfing through my press clipping, yeah, still the same. There was a message that approximately 12 or 15,000 households where the power was restored. I can't see numbers either. Yeah. I just it's like it's like on my math lessons, when my math teacher tells something in, like, I don't know, 7th grade, and the words just like fly through me, all right, without my brain even registering them. But the history was kind of cool. If you have the money, heat pumps, basically reversible AC, are wonderful down to about minus 40 degrees Celsius. They can be more than 100% efficient because they pump heat rather than generating it. Yeah, if you have money. Yeah, and also in Ukraine, for example, in 2022, it was really hard to find that stuff, because even if you can find a generator, like actually obtaining it was a pain in the ass, because everyone was buying something like that. Makeshift wood burners can be set up quickly near a window and run a pipe for exhaust through the window. Set the stove in concrete blocks as a firewall. It depends how effectively you can use the exhaust, all right? How effectively you can dissipate the exhaust on the outside. We had Russia spies last year in some of our power plants in Germany. Storages came up because the plant owner complained to state officials. Next time, send inspectors. That's not just speak Russian. Fuck, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, Tagesspiegel reports that 25,000 500 households without electricity. State pays for hotels. But do hotels have electricity? That's a different question. My heating went out last year for 3 days. It's an excuse to stay in bed, 100%. I would definitely stay in bed for like 3 days myself. But if I do, I will be missing you so much, my friends. As unbelievable coincidence, there were official information requests from German AfD politicians about the exact that electrical cables connections months ago. That is something that we talked about yesterday, because I also mentioned that AfD was requesting different information regarding the critical infrastructure in Germany and also the defense-related information, which is why it was highly suspicious. But I don't know specifically about this electric grid. In autumn, I was in the middle of the last blackout in Berlin that lasted for 3 days in the southeast of the city, and it was conducted by the same group and affected tens of thousands. Yeah, in autumn last year, I don't know, maybe I missed that, but Vulcan Group, yeah, they committed approximately 11 attacks already on the German infrastructure since 2011. That's what basically the open sources say. If you have your own place and want to drill a hole for a duct, a small wood burner is wonderful. I agree on this one. In Ukraine, we have quite a few households that installed them. And by the way, it's not just Ukrainian experience. Bosnia, right? Sarajevo. When there was a war, when Sarajevo was blockaded by Serbs and Russians helping Serbs, the Bosnian people would just install literally like stoves in their homes, and you could see, for example, a wall of pipes, all right, on the side of a like projects or multi-story building. People were using them, and they're highly effective. But again, two biggest concerns is fire safety and CO, all right. Intel agencies need to pay particular attention to orcs living among us, plenty of potential traitors. Yes, that one. Why orcs living among us is a risk group? First of all, because a lot of them with nostalgia, all right, for KGB, for Soviet Union, all right. Why people have that nostalgia is because why they feel nostalgic for the prison of nations called USSR. Only one reason, because they had good erection. Like literally, I'm not joking, all right? They had better health and good erection. That's basically it. And they are feeling so nostalgic after that shit. So ideological terrorists, potential recruits that can be recruited from the Russian nationals, that's one thing, all right? And second thing is not only them, because unfortunately, even in Ukraine, Russians were and are still recruiting the people that are struggling financially or can be influenced in a different way, or simply stupid people, all right? Why stupid people are dangerous? You find someone with, the most ridiculous commentaries on Facebook, okay? Like, I can't understand how is it our planet rotates around sun if I clearly see sun rotating around planet, all right? Eat that, NASA, all right? You find a dumb fuck like that and you contact this person, all right, personally, and you say, dude, your IQ actually, your brilliant IQ makes you a perfect candidate for our tiny CIA operation, all right? That is targeting some very, very nasty terrorist group, but it must be done in secret, all right? The dude will be like, fucking A, America first. And you go, yes, and your payment, by the way, will be like $200 if you don't mind. Fuck, of course. What should I do? Take this package and deliver it over there, all right? That terrorist group located over there, it pretends to be a police department, but they're not. They're terrorists in real life. Oh, fuck, yeah. And basically those people arrive there and get blown up to atoms, all right, remotely, together with their target. That is like very primitive example of what the Russian FSB is doing. And not only them, by the way. I mean, not only America first, but generally. Germany first, you name it. The woman that tried to assassinate Sternenko in Ukraine, she, well, according to her testimonies, she says that she thought she was working for SBU, all right? That Ukrainian security service hired her, and she was in like romantic relations, all right? Romantic online relations with that SBU officer, all right? Who ordered her to assassinate Sternenko. Fuck, in Ukraine, everyone knows who Sternenko is. That is why I think that she's lying. But if she's not, then that is again another example of how Russians work. They are extremely cunning. They know how to recruit people. You will hardly know that you work for the Russian FSB, for the Russian terrorists. I'm not saying, please guys, don't think that I'm some sort of racist who says that, like, you know, we should do something with all the stupid people. We should educate them on the first place. And I know that it's a very, very hard process. And it's not necessarily effective process. But we gotta do what we can. All right, that's one of the missions of my channel, all right, to motivate you to help me to educate those. Because otherwise we will see quite a few, you know, patriots voting like for AfD, and we will see something that is happening in the United States already, or maybe worse. Hallo, wie geht's? Alles gut? I'm trying to figure out how to convert my grandson's toy drone into a stealth using fiber optic cable from my old TV. Where are you from, my friend? If you're like from Europe somewhere, unfortunately that may be handy in the close perspective. Eddie Bravo believed flat Earth. The coolest thing about what was the name of their dude who built a rocket to prove that the Earth is flat and launched himself and got flattened as a result? About 10 years ago, I played an online game, and one guy was a real jerk. He was a Russian Canadian. His username looked like a garment server username. Not very smart. If you meet a jerk on the internet, unfortunately, I give you not like a guarantee, but a very, very high chance that that will be a specifically Russian jerk. That's, by the way, something that I noticed, for example, playing online games myself, because when you play online games with other guys, no matter what we're saying about, youth nowadays, they are mostly much more polite than whatever fuck from like Ryazan or Omsk, It's true. It's actually true. I watched a woman get arrested mid-interview during a protest yesterday. I was strongly reminded of the anti-war protests in Russia in 2022. Hello to the beautiful Norway. Yeah, one thing that makes me extremely concerned about all this is that the group exists since 2011. That's according to the open sources. But guys, if the group consists of like 2 people, okay, which can't be the case, then whatever proxy can also say that they are also Vulkan-Gruppe. Alright, and they can do whatever the shit wait a second. The shadow puppeteer is telling them, alright? But that's how KGB operates all the time. Since 2000s, a lot of gaming servers ban Russian IPs because a lot of them are using hacks. And approximately 99% of them are using cracked games, because Russians have some of the biggest torrent tracker in the world with stuff. Any other? Wait here, just a second. I almost destroyed my beautiful setup here with all that. Yeah, but we are all NAFO fans here. I just almost. The patches are in place. 7, yeah, everything's fine. Love the new Ukrainian flag. That's a flag of my brigade. That's the official one. Official as in the flag that we have, right? The people who did it are German leftists, are pro-Ukraine. I think Ukrainians not get the fucking point there. Oh, really? They are so pro-Ukraine. Fuck. You know, yesterday I've seen a bunch of people saying that I'm a fucking propagandist and finishing their sentences, glory to Ukraine. Fuck. When you look at what Putin is saying about brotherly nations, shit like that, he's fucking the most pro-Ukrainian person in the world. When Trump says that Putin wants Ukraine to succeed, it makes him as pro-Ukrainian as those motherfuckers who committed this terrorist attack. Don't be ridiculous, all right, my friend? The organization who did it has a Ukrainian flag in their Twitter. I have no doubt. I have absolutely no doubt, my friend. It would be weird if they admitted that they support AfD, for example, right? Would be extremely weird. Or if they said, we are a terrorist organization funded by Kremlin itself, all right? We just received a bunch of rubles from central bank for what we did. Would be extremely weird. Slatter, again, my dear friend from Thailand, okay, German leftists, especially the extremists, are almost exclusively pro-Russian, always have been ever since the establishment of the Soviet Union. That's the point. Kyle Kulinski, by the way, a person that I respect and follow all the time, he says that old school leftists are more often pro-Russian still. Of course they are. Of course. Because if you take a look at Russian political movements inside Russia, all right, like Russia is very far left and very far right at the same time. They're still commies. They're still fucking commies. But at the same time, they are also fucking fascists. And they have some interesting organizations like Nuts Balls, for example, National Bolsheviks, all right? Like Nazi communists. That can be born only in Russia, but Rogozin, the former chief of the Russian space program, he was a member of that. Fortunately, what our typical manga thinks is that left wing means Marxist. Yeah. Leftist extremists, they're really bending over backwards to avoid pointing the finger at Russia. Absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. Guys, all the left, like far left organizations that we have in Europe, they support Russia. Obviously, Russia, the cradle of the communism and shit, in our part of the world. They all do. And all of our right organizations that you can also see, they also support Russia. The most conservative country in the world, supported by fuckers like Elon Musk, who calls to exit European Union and NATO and stuff for that very purpose, so Russia can easily, invade those countries and eat them one by one. And they also, the far right neo-Nazi, whatever, they also support Russia. They don't support Ukraine. Why, you may ask? It's because Ukraine, despite all the bullshit that Russians are saying about it, full of nets and shit like that, but the fact is, at this very point, Ukraine is supported by the whole civilized world, all the countries, and inside Ukraine, you can find thousands, if not tens of thousands, of volunteers, either military or civilian volunteers from all around the world, from Arabic countries, even people from Iran, actually, who come to Ukraine saying that we're very, very sorry for what the factor Khamenei is doing to our people. We'd like to help. We have those. I know those, all right, personally. And the whole world is now rooting for Ukraine because that is the proper thing, all right? That's what the common sense is telling you. You will find the whole world there. You will find the whole, like all of the continents, people from all of the continents in Ukraine fighting against Russian fascism. That is the reason why all the far-right folks, they don't support Ukraine, they support Russia, because they think that Russia, and especially such ethnic Russians as Buryats, Yakuts, and Kadyrovites, is the proper thing. Now Germany knows what Ukraine has been suffering the past 4 years. My friend, I don't blame the people again. I don't blame people because we never think about inconvenient, horrible, and scary things until we have to face those things ourselves. Is Cat is still alive? Yeah. Do you want to know the cringiest statement he made previously? He says, if we have an order, Kadyrovites, right? He says, if we have an order, we will also show you our example of Venezuela president snatching, all right, only in Ukraine. The fuckers were already ordered that in 2022 and they fucking failed. So that was his most recent statement. Hello, brother. Hello to the beautiful United States. It makes me furious when people say Putin is not so bad. Yeah, tell those people to go to fucking Kolyma or whatever, Uсть-Пиздюйsk, outside Moscow or St. Petersburg. They will love it. Germany is the biggest supporter of Ukraine after the US. Yes, everybody knows that. But since January last year, Germany is probably, I don't know, Germany, Poland, in terms of finances or in terms of the GDP spent on support of Ukraine, I gotta check this information. But Germany is definitely one of the countries that actually invests a lot in support Ukraine, not only financially, not only in terms of resources, but also politically. Tell them Putin is worse than Maduro. If they like Russia so much, they should go there. They should follow Tucker Carlson. I will help pay for their fucking tickets. Why is Germany not supply Taurus? Germany are too weak. You know that Russians have nuclear weapons. Some of those nuclear weapons, specifically the ICBMs, are stored in the silos, right, under the ground. Taurus is a kind of missile that can hit those silos and destroy the Russian ICBMs before they're launched. That's like a tiny hint on why the Taurus missiles are still not here. Read that Germany is making drones for Ukraine now, but not sure how many. Yes, that's a correct information. And also, I hope that they will, that they stockpile a bunch for themselves as well. Because based on what we know from Russia and looking at the expansion of their fucking military bases along the borders with Baltic states, unfortunately, we will need drone operators in Europe as well, my opinion. As a German, I fully support Ukraine and hope that it will receive more consistent support, especially since Trump's cozy relationship with Putin is a real problem. Danke sehr, mein Freund. I completely agree with you, and I highly appreciate your support for our people. Again, it's really good to see that a lot of Ukrainians, and I am sure about this, that there's a lot of Ukrainians living in Berlin. They freaking, as soon as they learned about this attack on the power grid, they were there, all right? Within like 5 minutes with, I don't know, tea or cookies, because I know my people, right? Our people are very, very good at self-organizing, and I'm sure we could definitely see a lot of them literally just, hanging around asking, guys, tell us what to do. 10,000 drones per month is a cooperation with Ukraine, and all the drones go to Ukraine as well. The Taurus Neo will have sub engine in about a year or so. Oh, that's interesting. Kind of topic, but where do you see Belarus after Luka? He sounds strong enough to maintain power. Whatever Luka tells to his generals and his army, they will follow, all right? Because they are, like in Savok, in the Soviet Union, you don't think, you just follow the orders, all right? So that is what we can expect. Luka tells his generals, all right, I am in command today, tomorrow you listen to Sasha, to my son. They just go, yes sir, and they will follow this command. Like they don't think, especially those in the military system in Belarus, they don't think, right? They're not trained to think. Ukraine has shown that when a weapon or missile is denied to them, they can adapt and build their own. Yeah, that's one of the things that I also enjoy, because when Trump, for example, says, I will give you tomahawks, and then he says, I won't give you tomahawks, while all those talks are taking place, Ukrainians just build flamingos, because, like, fuck, what should we expect from people who openly say, fuck supporting Ukraine, all right? Fuck interfering with other countries. We have a lot of internal problems, but let's just invade Venezuela and Greenland just in case, all right? The other day I received a commentary from a lady, apparently some of the Trump supporters. They're in the comments on my channel. She says, clean your own front yard, or something like that. Clean your own front yard and don't look what is happening on other people's backyards. Very, very funny to hear that commentary coming from someone who invaded Venezuela, all right? Someone who definitely doesn't look what is happening on Venezuela backyard. I think that non-used Taurus is rightly framed by its use of American-made parts being subject to US embargo. That's an interesting topic, actually. USA has never ratified the International Crime Court. USA has even sanctioned International Crime Court, as far as I remember. Belarus has no army but a lot of police to suppress the population. That is also true. They have a lot of law enforcement. I believe they have more law enforcement than the army men. Kolyma is infamous as being one of the most notorious gulags. I can confirm that. One of the biggest camps for political prisons was located in Kolyma. If International Crime Court puts arrest warrant on US administration, at least they can travel where they want. Holy shit. I don't know. Will we really see that? Because if the United States leadership becomes so ignorant, all right, that they will actually decide to dismantle NATO by actually invading Greenland, then most probably we will see some absolutely crazy shit, all right, like International Crime Court actually issuing more unexpected warrants. Yesterday I was looking at different updates, and I watched that, I think it was CNN, interview with Stephen Miller from the White House, where he asks important questions, all right? Like, what right does Denmark have to call Greenland the land of Denmark, their very own colony, all right? United States should have Greenland instead of like, the dude literally tries to question the right of a different country to have that territory, all right, after all sorts of recognitions of established borders and everything else. And he tries to say that United States have more rights on Greenland than Denmark, which makes me thinking. We should ask some people who actually have experience, all right, who are experienced with like land ownership and things like that, who can actually answer how much United States have right on Greenland versus Denmark. For example, let's ask, I can name at least 4, all right? Let's ask Cherokee, let's ask Navajo, Comanche, Apache. They can definitely tell how much rights does Trump have to occupy Greenland. Cheryl there in the chat, you can confirm my thought, right? The natives of Greenland have already made their statements, 100%. I can just speculate on what is going on the backstage right now, with all the interesting people, right, like offering fucking golden mountains to the people of the Greenland. Miller reminds me of Reinhard Heydrich. They look so similar. I agree on this one. 89% population of Greenland is Inuit, yeah. I think the real question is who will control the waters around Greenland. It will either be China, Russia, or America. Denmark has no ability to defend Greenland. It's reality. So tell me sincerely, do you believe that Trump wants Greenland because Trump is afraid of Russia so much? All right, because if you listen to to the statements made by Trump, where he says that it's his official position that Greenland should be taken from Denmark and joined with the United States, okay, and at the same time he says that why should the United States be afraid of Russia? We are separated by oceans. We give no fuck. We have the biggest and baddest ships in the world. We have the biggest and baddest army in the world. We're not afraid of anyone, which I can confirm at this very point Trump is not much afraid of Putin, all right? Which he actually should be considering of what Russians are saying in their social media and national television. But it's not like Trump is... Either way, others will take it unless NATO will step up. So that is another very, very good point, because, for example, if we talk about factors like Maduro, okay, usually this involves a community, all right? It involves a community. So when you're facing a problem, for example, if you live in a neighborhood and you're facing a problem with the mafia, all right? So instead of going to Don Corleone and asking him for a bunch of goons to deal with that mafia, ask these bad guys to deal with those bad guys, you either go to police or you organize your local community and ask them, what the fuck do we do with those? Okay, it's not like you decide that you have a fucking right to perform the functions of law enforcement. Okay, because that is something that you should consult with others, okay, and deliver to them the information why it's necessary to do this way, okay. Who exactly gave Trump this, supreme power to decide which country fucking has right to that territory or doesn't have right to that territory, which country should have like this government or that government? I don't really know. He may have his position, right? But who gave him right to actually perform the functions of the whole NATO bloc or international crime court that he fucking sanctioned? I have no idea. Please let me know. Because the last message, all right, the last statement that I've heard from that direction is that United States is a supreme country and we will act as a supreme country. So the last time I heard, I didn't hear it myself because I didn't exist back then, but the last time I heard such commentaries coming from state leaders, it ended up very, very bad, all right, for Europe, for United States, and everybody else. Just to remind you, all right, after that we were accustomed to saying never again, but for some reason we can see exactly that happening again, so just be aware of that. That is why the United Nations fucking obliterated the United States representatives that, by the way, are very, very good at voting together with terrorist countries like China and North Korea in the United Nations over the past year, all right? That is why the international society obliterated them, and that is why international society supports Denmark in terms of its ownership of Greenland, all right? That is another thing. As for NATO, Denmark is part of NATO, and if there is a serious threat of China, landing on Greenland and proclaiming this territory as their own, then Denmark may also call for the gathering of the NATO states and ask for activation of the 5th article, and then the NATO states are involved into defending the Greenland from China. It works fucking like that. There is mechanism like that, right? It doesn't require a dude who captured, some factored in a third world country, all right, ruined, absolutely ruined by poverty, by this very dude, and fucking thinks that he's a supreme ruler now. The European Court of Human Rights is an abuser of European human rights. What do you mean by saying that? Because the European Court for Human Rights is actually investigating Russian crimes in Crimea against the Crimean Tatars, against the political prisoners, against a lot of Ukrainian people. Way before the full-scale Russian invasion, Ukrainian director Sentsov that was held in the Russian captivity. European Court for Human Rights is known for investigating that stuff as well. One thing I can tell you for sure that in 2025 and 2026 we can observe a very dangerous trend, which is complete fucking disrespect towards the internationally recognized borders. The trend started by Putin, by the way, and adopted by his good friends. Complete disrespect to internationally recognized borders, things like that. Right of nations to define and select their future, their destiny. And complete lack of understanding of international law. That is something very, very concerning. Might makes right. Right, we can see like exactly this these days. And that's very, very concerning. Some Americans say, if it wasn't for us, you'd all be speaking German. Somebody needs to come and save us from all having to speak American. If it wasn't for French, they would have British passports today. Let's also remember that. But I completely agree. If it wasn't for the United States, we would speak German. And that is something that people fucking, like people wearing red hats, they fucking forget that we're not speaking German today because United States saved everybody. We're not speaking German today. Germans, I love you. I don't speak German well, by the way, I'm still learning. But the reason we're talking about the terrorist Adolf was defeated, not because a single country emerged, arrived on spaceships and killed everybody, like all the bad guys with lasers. The main reason was because we united against the evil, all right? Some people, unfortunately, think that being evil is better than uniting against fighting it. And that is the biggest problem. At least he didn't accuse US of speaking English. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong, dear Americans. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a very big chance that actually the United States could be speaking Dutch, as far as I remember from history. Again, let me know if I'm wrong. You missed out on me, I speak German. Oh my god, my friend. Entschuldigung, es tut mir leid. I do that from time to time. But again, great example, all right? The great example of a maniac who in the beginning of the 20th century decided that his country is fucking supreme and decided that he doesn't need everybody else, all right? Like, fuck them. We are uber alles, all right? So the example of that dude should kind of indicate that it's a dangerous game because he fucking died. All right. He didn't win. He kind of won initially, but because good guys united against him, he fucking died. That is just something to keep in mind. Like, you don't continue the path of maniacs who were punished for their crimes. It's a very, very bad habit, all right? To copy like bad guys that are known to be bad, who paid for their crimes and got defeated. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, it's just history, right? Yeah, first English Puritan colonies were Dutch. That is something that I remember from history, that when the colonies started being united, I think there was a big chance that they would choose, for example, Dutch language to write the constitution. But because just a few more people spoke English, it's written in English. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong, right? Because like I remember something here, but I don't remember something here. Multiculturalism is destroying white nations. What makes white nations great? Tell me this. Because literally, if you were born in Afghanistan, you would think in an absolutely different way. You would think like those that white scum coming here all the freaking time. You know, they are destroying our beautiful nation of Afghani people. All right. Or for example, if you were born in India, you would think like those white fucks coming here, they destroy our beautiful nation. What exactly makes white nations supreme? And also tell me this. Can you say that United States is a white nation? Again, let's ask Cherokee, let's ask Navajo, all right? All those guys, they can probably answer this question. Afghanis aren't whites. They kind of Indo-Iranian, like from that part of the world. All right. I would definitely not call them like European nation. However, on the other hand, what is European nation? European nation is a nation of people, part of the European Union, that consider their collective security one of their biggest priorities nowadays. That's basically what makes us Europeans today, all right? not freaking, I don't know, let's kick out all the immigrants and, stop mating with people of color, all right? That's a fucking bullshit. So what about Berlin being under attack? Berlin authorities report that Berlin suffered a terrorist attack committed by the Vulkangruppe, the extremist organization that is known for committing approximately 11 attacks since 2011, and 45 German households were suffering without electricity. At this point, the number of these households is approximately 30,000, 30,000. That is the recent update on the Berlin under attack. Okay. Yeah, most probably, a dude wearing, like balaclava and bringing a bunch of incendiary devices with him to the power station. Maybe he just slipped over a cable, absolutely fucking accidentally, and he fell down and something happened. He spilled coffee, all right, on the cable while just peacefully sitting there. I mean, if that's what you're trying to say. And of course, you have right to have that opinion, even if it's completely fucking wrong. My ancestors fled England to Massachusetts because of his belief in the separation of church and state. Later, he fled Massachusetts for Rhode Island. Same reason, sheltered by the Wampanoag Indians. Ah, that's interesting. The whole narrative is false. Everyone is mixed. There is no such thing as pure blood. 100%. Like, I can tell even, all right, because coming from a country that is for some fucking reason is considered monocultural, all right, like monocultural Ukraine. I'm half Ukrainian, half Polish, half Gypsy. I can confirm that. And on the other hand, again, you know the definition of insanity, all right? It's doing the same fuckery over and over again, expecting a different result every single time. There was already a dude who did a lot, all right, to save white nation, white race. He fucking failed. He did. And there are still people who think, what if we try one more time? Okay, maybe we'll succeed this time. Like, if you stick your fucking fingers, if they're thin enough, if you stick your fucking fingers into the electric outlet, you know what happens, all right? But at some point you forget about this because you don't do that on a daily basis, which I am not calling you to do, all right? But Afghans came from Ukraine 3,000 years ago. Look, the Afghanians, I'm not sure that they came like straight from Ukraine, because if we're talking about the Celtic culture that was moving across Ukraine from west, and we're talking about the Indo-Iranian culture that was moving from east to west. Those were moving from west to east, these from east to west, and they crossed on the territory of Ukraine. Then we will see a lot of very much cases of people being mixed, however you like. right? I'm not even mentioning the Scandinavian culture that was moving towards Ukraine from the north, all right? Kievan rulers Askold, Tyr, then Kievan founders Kiev, Shek, Horiv, their sister Libid, they all came from approximately that direction, right, from the north. So that is like a big mix there on Ukrainian territory. But one thing I completely agree with you is that the Indo-Iranian culture is very, very strong in our part of the world, because they were also moving, they were also migrating from that general area, and they were all mixed with Tripilians on the Ukrainian territory like gazillion years ago. Another fun fact, 2,000 years ago, the Jews brought Christianity to Europe. Yeah, by the way, interesting fact is that Christianity was spread in the Roman Empire, I believe, like initially. Because when you see the reforms and when you check history, the adoption of Christianity, for example, in the Eastern Roman Empire, right after it split, with Constantinople being the major center for Orthodox Christianity in our part of the world. So, kinda, yeah, I kinda agree on that. If we want... Yeah, Jilka, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being objective today, because like I completely agree with this one. Because look what this shit makes people do. Protect white races. Fuck Ukraine, you know. Yeah, that's a direct connection, by the way. So I have to reconnect with some guys from Ukraine that visited us in the early 2000s. They were part of the church choir and had a great affinity for chocolate milk. We all have that stuff, all right? Another example of how bad multiculturalism is, Europe lost their old religions and gave into Christianity. I don't see it as a good thing. I will explain this literally from the standpoint of a communication specialist, all right? There's a lot of guys protesting against Islam, for example. Like a lot of Christians, evangelic, whatever. A lot of Christians protesting against Islam. Like literally they're going on the streets to protest against Islam. Okay, which they have right, of course, freedom of speech and all this stuff. What makes Christianity better than Islam? Besides the fact that you were born in the community, in the Christian community. What makes Christianity better than Islam? And the same question to other people, right, from the other side, what makes Islam better than Christianity? Like, seriously. So the answer to the problem why there's a lot of, for example, Muslim people migrating to Europe, to white countries and shit like that, and why they spread their religion so much there, all right, is apparently because Christian communication fucking sucks balls. Okay? That is the only reason. It's not because they are fighting, they are like forcefully converting people or stuff like that. That is because your own fucking communication skills, all right, my dear friend who protects Christian values, sucks balls. And instead of going and protesting on the street, you would better invest your skills, your efforts into explaining people why your religion is better. And that would bring you much more fucking result. But if you dig a bit deeper, right, in those people, they don't really like that shit. They prefer fucking violence. Okay, that is the basis, because if we're talking about people who enjoy literally, destroying mosques, going inside with AR-15 and shit, and shooting everybody, it's not because they are believers, Christians and shit like that. That is literally because they need violence, right? We have quite a few of people nowadays, unfortunately, who enjoy violence, right? Violence and fear makes them feel stronger, fighting big muscles, tattoos and all that stuff. They do that not because they want the peaceful Christian religion to be great. They want to terrorize people and feel satisfied after that. It's a fact. So if you want to make Christianity great again, all right, I don't fucking see you preaching in the church, my friend. I don't fucking see you going on the streets disseminating Christian leaflets, which is, by the way, something that, Muslim people do all the time. They disseminate their leaflets. Why don't you do the same stuff? And instead of literally trashing you right now on the YouTube, I would say, shit, Christians are so good, at their communication skills, at explaining why their religion, why their point of view is so good. You have my respect and admiration. Why don't you do that? Same, like, not necessarily Christians, like Buddhists and everybody else. If you invest into your belief, all right, for whatever reason you have, if you invest something in spreading your religion, you fucking have it. You have more followers. It's not about fighting, burning flags and shit like that. That is literally about establishing a proper channel of communication. That's it. And you fail at popularizing the ideas of Christianity, you fail only because the Muslim communication turns out to be better. All right. By the way, I will throw some stones at Democrats just the way the Trumpists won. All right, but not necessarily because their communication was righteous. All right, they were talking about beautiful things. They were talking shit. They were talking about Haitians eating dogs, but they were stronger. So regarding this one, Ukrainians always united with Nazis. I will open a big secret. In 1939, Russians, your favorite fucking idols, had a mutual military parade in the occupied Brest, all right, in Poland. Why? And if you take a look at Google, you will see, for example, Russian officers saluting German Nazi flag. You may ask why. So the answer to this is because Stalin and Hitler were allies before Hitler invaded Soviet Union in 1941. That's just a tiny example from history. If you're referring to SS Galicia and those military units that were organized by Nazi regime in Ukraine, with the overall number of personnel between 100 and 200,000 people, which is, I think, a bit inflated, then you gotta always also check the Russian Liberation Army with that were flying current Russian flags, the Russian fucking tricolor, the Aqua Fresh, the Russian Aqua Fresh. And you'll be fucking impressed to learn that the flag of the Russian Nazi collaborationist army that consisted of between 700 and 1,500,000 people, which is way bigger than in Ukraine. That currently Putin is kissing the flag of those Nazi collaborationists. A tiny trip into the history, my friend. Learn books. Graduate from your middle school, finally. And there, by the way, you have a good explanation, because the Stalin's forces, right, the Russian Bolsheviks, the Russian communists, actually killed between 4 and 10 million Ukrainians during the artificial Holodomor. That is one of the reasons why Ukrainians were trying to remove that regime. But at the same time, German Nazi troops also killed millions of Ukrainian people. Learn books. Yeah, read books. At least read them. It's extremely, extremely useful. Okay, with that, my dear friends, I think I will be wrapping this up. Didn't really plan to stream so early today, alright, because I expected this stream in the evening, but I thought that those updates about Berlin were very important to discuss. I need to ask a completely unrelated question. I obviously missed the joke, but why do you talk about toilets? Why do I talk about toilets? I don't know. Give me an example, please. So, if you mean that I'm mentioning Russian Ministry of Defense and stolen toilets, well, that's the fact, all right? Because Russians are known at stealing different plumbing equipment from the looted Ukrainian houses. But guys, I will, my God, have learned more about my granddad. Not yet. I had no time to work on that, unfortunately, but I will. It's like as easy, yeah, Russians always stealing them. That's the fact. It's as easy as literally going to the local archive and making a request, but it's hard at the same time. My friends, I'll be wrapping this one up. Thank you so much for staying here. All right, for following the stream, and also big thanks for your support. Big thanks to all the moderators, and big thanks to all the members of the channel. Let's keep, let's keep the situation in Berlin in mind. Let's monitor this situation, because it's very, very serious. We can see literally like a hybrid attack on the European country. All signs of that, okay, all signs. It may be a completely different story, but literally all signs of a hybrid attack, such as we could see in Ukraine, for example, it's right there. So let's monitor this one. Kudos and rays of love to all the German citizens, to citizens of Berlin. And our thoughts and prayers are with you, my friends. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding the generators, regarding all the stuff, power banks, and whatever, you name it, because I will share everything I have with you, my dear friends. Please leave those commentaries there under this video. And let's keep in touch. Have something good. Have plenty of hot coffee. It's freaking cold outside. And as always, be safe. Bye-bye.